So, folks, I don't know if many of you know about this out there, but there's two social platforms now. There's Twitter and there's Blue Sky. Well, the guest to my right has a good picture on Twitter, but his Blue Sky profile picture is something that goes pretty hard, if I have to say. Kyrie
Might have
Thompson
to
from
switch it.
Boston.com once again. You know, that's what I was just I was waiting for this moment to say that to you. I gotta wait and tell you to switch it tonight because the other photo of you on the NBC Boston side, I'm like, this guy's got his swagger back.
Yeah, you know what? Might have to switch it up. I'm actually going to be on NBC Sports Boston tomorrow to talk about the topics we're about to talk about right now.
This is like the dress rehearsal for the big rehearsal.
Exactly. It's perfect. It's great practice.
So what do we go with? Do we go with Chapel Bill, Chapel Hill? We're on to UNC. Do we go Drake May for Bill
See,
Belichick? What's the angle here?
I mean, I think Chapel Bill's the easy one. I actually like the we're on to Chapel Hill. Um, actually, I think if we really want to kind of do a galaxy brain deep cut here, it's like we're on to UNC because it's like it sounds vaguely like we're on to Cincinnati.
But I'm going to be honest with you. The way I look at this hiring, I know everyone's saying like, oh, like the way the college system works, what the NFL system works, isn't going to work. I look at it two ways. One, if he can get to a college football playoff, it's a success. I don't think national championships is what he's signing up for.
Yeah.
But if he can go into there and turn a bunch of unknown kids into NFL ready prospects, that's where it's going to kind of see, hey, my kid can go to North Carolina, or I want to transfer to North Carolina because, hey, I'm going to get some playing time and I'm going to get the eyes and the ears of the scouts at the next level. That's what I think the main focus is for Bill, and also too, I think the succession plan for Steve too, because he right now he's at Washington with Jed Fish, and so it's that layer to it as well.
I think in the end, he's a competitor and he's going to want to win. But I do feel like this strikes me as, you know what? Let's make the kind of college football program I would want to see. The kind of college football program that if I, were an NFL coach right now, that I would want to grab players from, like the ones that they like Alabama or Rutgers, right?
Yeah.
All those schools that they'll let you go, oh yeah, got to get a guy from Rutgers, whenever possible, right? But again, like this kind of program that teaches you how to play and prepares you to play NFL football, and I think it's going to be really interesting, especially what he does from the quarterback position. Like, how do they teach their quarterbacks to play? And I'm assuming in this that Josh McDaniel, well, he's talking about Freddie Kitchens being on the staff. And I mean, Freddie Kitchens has been an offensive coordinator as well. So I don't think it's necessarily a guarantee slam dunk that Josh McDaniels is going to come do this with him if Freddie Kitchens is going to be on the staff. But I think, if he does get Josh McDaniels, like that is going to be wild. Like that offense with college kids, they are going to come into the league, or they're just going to like be in college,
the ACC,
trying over here, like thinking on a level that like they were making Tom Brady have to think at, like have like 7 different sight adjustments at the line of scrimmage, and like everybody has to see the game like the same way and be able to hit. But that's the thing, complexity on offense, especially if you are all on the same page, it's basically unstoppable. We saw it for 20 years?
Yeah,
right?
23 years.
And complex. See, I think that's the thing with football. Complex does not always equal great, right? But complexity often means that you just have so many different answers to the test. And if you've got all these different answers that you can draw upon, chances are you've got more answers than the defense has for what you're about to do. Whereas if things are pretty simple, it's like, okay, you're relying on the idea that, okay, if the defense knows what you're doing, it doesn't matter because you're just going to out execute them. You're just going to be better than them. So I'm really curious to see what kind of quarterback situation, and how they're going to coach these guys. But I think ultimately, like you were saying, it's not necessarily about, oh yeah, I got to make the college football play. They're not making the college football playoff in Bill Belichick's first year. And then you got to remember, he's not even going to be doing his first real recruiting class until the following year. So this isn't, it's his program in the sense that he's coaching it, but these aren't his players, right? He hasn't even necessarily been like, I'm going to go to like these kids' houses and look them in the eye and be like, this is the guy that I want. That's not going to happen for a minute.
No, and the other thing too with that as well is you nailed it on the head with the recruiting process as well, where that's all that ship's already sailed. All the signing day stuff, I believe that was the last couple of weeks. So in reality, the only thing he can do is like the transfer portal stuff. But even besides that, the great example to give as well as Dion going to Colorado. They were terrible in 2023. They won a couple games here and there, surprising people, and then they fell off a cliff. Meanwhile, this year, they were flirting with the Big 12 playoff, the Big 12 championship, flirting with a potential spot in the playoff, and they got to a bowl game. So even in 2025, if they go 6-6, 7-5, which is really goofy to think that's like bad in college football, where it's like if you're anything under 6 wins, it's disgracefully bad. Kind of like what FSU and Wisconsin did this year. But, so where it's like now, hey, next year, get to a bowl game, or even if this year to get to a thing, which with the bowl games, I did do some digging and I found out that UNC's bowl game, I believe, is the Fenway Bowl at Fenway Park that Freddie Kitchens which Freddie's going to be the head coach for. So there's little like layers of, it's just like fun little Easter eggs. But yeah, that's the main thing with next year. Like, no one's asking you to do what Dabble's done at Clemson, what Kirby's doing at Georgia, what Sark hopes to do at Texas. No, I'm not even going to mention Saban because obviously that's a class of its own. It's more about just like, hey, make a school that's well known for basketball into a winning football pedigree program.
Yeah, and I think it's, I would not be surprised to see him at that game. Just to be around.
I'll also say this too. I'm glad because I have the Thursday night game on. I'm glad I'm not there right now because it looks like it's coming down hard in San Francisco.
Yeah, it looks pretty ugly out there, and I mean the football also looks pretty ugly. I think it's
3-0 with 7 minutes left.
Yeah, not great. In the 7 minutes in the first half, but yeah, it's nasty. And I think the Rams only just got their first verse down. Like it's not good.
No, it's not. Moving on, just obviously, look, there's a lot going on, but the main thing with college football right now as well is that, and I was talking to McGarvin about this on Tuesday, but when you look ahead, even from who's in this year's class, I'm so glad New England is, and even too, I know Chicago, look, the season hasn't gone the way you guys had hoped, but the fact that you don't have to, neither team has to worry about going out to get that quarterback, because let's be honest with you, besides Cam Ward and maybe Shedeur to an extent, it's a really big fall off too. So that's the other part with Bill as well, where, and also I agree with your takes, by the way, on where I think Carson Beck and Jalen Milroe, they're going to get a GM fired, but then they're going to make a GM a superstar when they really, they potentially take off in the second portion of their career. But no, the big thing right now with Bill, though, it just goes back to him where it's like, hey, apart from getting kids to attend UNC, it's, hey, making them an NFL factory, where it's like, look at how Iowa's tight end you. Look at how you have Alabama, Notre Dame, Wisconsin just churning out offensive linemen. LSU, wide receiver you. You can say other schools too, but like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I think the main goal with North Carolina is.
Yeah, and I'm curious to know what position would be the calling card. Would it be offensive line? Would it be obviously UNC's had some quarterbacks come through in recent years, right? You've had Mitchell Trubisky, Drake May, obviously.
Even Sam Howell to an extent.
Yes, Sam Howell. I mean, he's an NFL quarterback, right? He got drafted, right? Had a season as a starter where it was like, okay, well, he can throw for a lot of yards. He's also going to get sacked a ton, but it is what it is.
Back in Seattle right now.
But I mean, you've had some wide receivers come out of there. You've had some running backs come out of there. Ray Davis is nice. So I'm curious to see how is he going to build that program once it does start to take off.
Yeah, that's the big thing too, where it's like 2025 is kind of the write-off, and then 2026 is kind of that like, hey, this is where we go. This is where you truly emerge. Because like I was saying earlier too, the ACC, it's the least compelling conference right now when you look at college football. It's kind of like you have the SEC, you have the Big 10, Big 12's kind of like meddling there, and then ACC right now is really plateaued ever since Clemson's I know Clemson's in the playoff right now, and so is SMU, thank the Lord. But essentially, besides those two teams, there's not really many teams you can look at and go, hey, they're at the pinnacle. Because like we see Miami really have a hard fall off towards the end of the year. And then there's a bunch of teams where it's just like, but the fun thing too is that him against Bill O'Brien, you're going to see that a few times too with Boston College.
In theory, not this year, at least not on the schedule, but you know what? If you want to hold out hope for a ACC championship game, you could see it. But I think they're not supposed to play each other until like 2026 or 7 or something like that. So it's going to be a couple of years before it's on the schedule, unless they meet each other for ACC championships.
That's one of the most fascinating things with college football, where it's like, hey, Notre Dame's going to go play Washington in the years 2033 and 2034. You know, it's like so weird how like these games are scheduled like years and years out. Like I even know last year when it was announced that Alabama was playing Georgia, there was a report that every single hotel within a 30-mile radius of Tuscaloosa was sold out for that weekend alone.
Yeah.
So it's wild. It's wild. But apart from this, and so we'll I guess now, you know what, we can take a chance, take a quick crack at the slate, because look, the game on right now is terrible. But I was looking at these games for Sunday. Sunday is the weirdest slate of football because the 1 o'clock window, you know, it's kind of like we'll see what happens. And then you have the 4 o'clock window, which is going to produce fireworks, most notably in the Valley on Sunday, you know, when the Arizona Cardinals play New England. But the first game they have there is I've seen it's Dallas and Carolina, where Dallas is a favorite, but I don't know if I want to buy it, but I'm starting to, you know, sell what Dave Canellis is making.
I think Carolina is going to win that game against Dallas. There are a couple factors here, right? So obviously, like, there's no Dak Prescott for the rest of the year. Obviously, you know, you're not going to see him. There's going to be Cooper Rush or what have you, but Dallas also just lost, its best non-Micah Parsons defensive player, in my opinion, right? In DeMarvion Overshown, the linebacker. He tore basically his entire knee. It was really unfortunate. And he really makes it go in the middle of that defense. And look, Bryce Young, and I'll say this for a lesser extent for Anthony Richardson, but Bryce Young has got to be the first quarterback I've seen get benched and it actually looked like, wow, that was genius. Like I felt like, okay, you know what? Okay, they're moving on from Bryce, and that's it. He's probably not going to play for this team anymore unless like he absolutely has to. And then Andy Dalton gets hurt / is bad. They put Bryce Young back in, and it's like slowly but surely, it's just like, this is it. He's not even fully realized yet, but I was like, this is what we wanted to see from him.
Yeah.
Like Bryce Young actually looks like an NFL quarterback right now. I love it for him because look, I think ultimately I was push or pull on Bryce Young versus CJ Stroud. I thought that Bryce's ability to create was better than CJ's. Yeah. But I thought that CJ, in terms of just being able to do the standard easy stuff, was going to be a bit more reliable, better than Bryce. And so far that's been borne out.
Yeah.
And I would say that CJ Stroud's still easily better than Bryce Young at this point, but Bryce Young has, I think, been playing more interesting football than CJ Stroud has of late.
Yeah, that's the big thing too, because also besides the fact too that CJ Stroud's got a really bad offensive line playing in front of him. But with Carolina though, I say when I want to not retract, but I want to go back to what I said earlier with Dave Canellis, because I think he was brought in with the right frame of mind, and also to the fact now we're hearing reports, you know, hey, David Tepper's less hands off. He's basically learning like, hey, I got the faith in Dan Morgan and Dave Canellis. I'm not here to say that they're going to be good anytime soon, but I think it's starting to build to that where it's like, hey, Dave Canellis is a guy we want to play for, you know, like, hey, if the owner's going to be less hands off. And also say this too, he's an emerging talent, but he's very entertaining off field. But I'm really starting to like Xavier Legette as well. Chuba Hubbard's really come along nicely in his 4th year. They have the pieces. It's going to take a while, but yeah, ultimately this game, Carolina's going to be, it's basically the story of breaking through, you know, where it's like the 3-point loss to Kansas City, the game against Tampa going to OT, and then what happened last week against Philadelphia, which that's a lot to uncover. So, you know what? I'm with you there. I think Carolina gets the win, but then the next one on the slate is Cleveland, and look, they'll cover the spread, but they're going to have some weird voodoo magic happen to them, and Patrick Mahomes gets another win, right? That's just where we're going with this.
Honestly, I'm stunned that, it took the Bills to, you know, beat the Chiefs, like an actually good team with, you know, another, you know, amazing quarterback who deserves to be MVP. But that's what it takes to beat the Chiefs. If you're just mid to bad, or you've only played a decent game, like the Chiefs are going to find a way to beat you. It just is what it is.
It's like the game
Like when
against
you think about it, it's wild. Like it took Josh Allen Supermaning in order for for the Bills to win that game, because you know that if he hadn't Supermaned, they would have been 13-0.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. The big thing with Kansas City too, and I keep saying this, is eventually now they're either going to win it all or they're just going to have like a game where, like, sorry to bring up an old thing, but like what happened to the Bears in the 2018 playoffs against the
Yeah.
Eagles, something like that, where it's like Bucker will be back. It's like Bucker, 50-yard field goal, get the win, and then the doink goes the opposite way. And like, or Mahomes, it's one. I'm not saying I can never see them getting blown out in a playoff game because, they know how to play from behind, but it's just one of those, they're off their cues. They're off this, they're off that. They have that one moment where it's just mental lapse after mental lapse. But no, this game here, look, Cleveland's been a fun story, but like I said, I can't trust Kansas City to cover spread, but I can trust them to pull out a rabbit out of their hat. But eventually, I think the rabbit's just not going to come out of the hat.
Yeah. I mean, I think I just don't know that I can really see KC losing that game. And again, if it's close, KC's going to win because that's just what they do. I think it's more likely they go out in the first round than they win the Super Bowl this year because they just don't, especially on offense, they just don't look like a Super Bowl team. But
No.
I mean, but you know what? They get to the playoffs and you know how it is, right? It's just like, oh yeah, we've been here like, 80 times with Patrick Mahomes. We're going to find a way to win. That's just how it is.
I also think with them too, it's just the pressure of knowing how to win is gone from them. Unlike teams like, where that's the concern with like a Buffalo or a Detroit or even a Philadelphia, where it's like, hey, we don't know how to close out as I open a can in the same time where I think what's in it. Miami and Houston, where Houston had a very sad anniversary a couple days ago of the infamous Letterman game against the New England Patriots. You know the one I'm talking about? They showed up to Gillette rocking those high school Houston, Texas Letterman jackets, and they got dog walked 42-14. But here, this is a game I want to call with Miami. Are we sure Miami's a playoff, in that stratosphere because of, you have a Houston team that's faltering. You have a Miami team that, like, look, they barely got by the Jets last week. So I think this is a tough one too. And Houston's also coming off a bye.
I don't think Miami's really a playoff team. And I mean, part of it is just record because, Tua Tagovailoa was hurt for that amount of time. They were playing backup quarterbacks. But, I mean, even if they were a playoff team, like, there's a difference between like, oh, yeah, they're a playoff team and like they're going to win a playoff game. I don't feel like they're that kind of team. I think that Houston has a lot of flaws, especially protecting CJ Stroud, and I think he's regressed. But I think what kind of quarterback, what kind of player CJ Stroud is. He has won a playoff game and he has balled out against some of the best defenses out there. So to me, I think, for give me one game, I'm taking Houston.
Yeah, I think Houston's going to be that team that come January, they're a team that, look, I don't see going far in the playoffs, but I think they're that team as well. It's like, hey, you got to view the offseason a little differently now, to where it's like, hey, instead of we have this like, amazing quarterback, it's, hey, we have to build around the quarterback, because the other thing with him too is he's been a bit of a Nico Collins merchant. Even I've started bringing this up, but for as much flack as we give the Giants for letting Saquon Barkley go, the Bengals kind of deserve it too with letting Joe Mixon go. And that's where the next game is with Tennessee playing Cincinnati, because it's like they were ready to cut Joe Mixon, just be like, hey, we don't want you. And then Houston's like, hold up. We'll give you, I forget what the package was, but it's like, we'll give you this to get Joe Mixon. And Joe Mixon's had a career renaissance down in Houston. So I agree with you right now. If I had to pick between Tua and CJ, give me CJ in a 1-game playoff, just for that sakes. And then Tennessee, Cincinnati, look, it's too little too late for Cincinnati. Tennessee's already looking at 2025. I like the Bengals here, and I don't really have much else to add.
I mean, they're going to score 1 million points. Of that you can be assured. And I think that's the interesting thing, right, with the Bengals. I mean, if you gotta pick between paying your, receiver, Jamar Chase, which honestly they should have paid him before the season. I don't know what they were doing there, because now he's going to cost more. Okay. You should have paid him. You should have paid him early. So now you got that. You got Joe Burrow saying we're going to try to keep T. Higgins too. So it's like with that in mind, you can't keep Joe Mixon, and
Nope.
running backs are definitely the position that you're more likely to be like, okay, I'll let you go. We'll find another one. But definitely good on Joe Mixon for continuing to uh continuing to run hard and create a space for himself out in Houston, which is like that's exactly the kind of team that signs a Joe Mixon, the one that's got the
Exactly.
rookie quarterback, where they're cheap up until CJ Stroud's not cheap, right?
And Will
You
Anderson.
kind of want to extend that as long as you can before that kicks in so that you can keep on investing in everything else. Because then once CJ Stroud costs $60 million a year, you can't keep Joe Mixon anymore.
No. You basically, and that's the thing I like that teams are trying to understand when you have like a Wunderkind style quarterback, you have to get the financial things around him. And I'm not dunking on John Chase Brown. Chase Brown's been a great addition for the Bengals. I'm just saying for what they did to just walk Joe Mixon like it was nothing, just never sat right with me. But no, Houston right now, they have to, and then these next, that's why this season and next season is so important for them, because after next season, guess who's going to go right to the office of who is their GM and Nick Caserio and say he wants 59, he wants 60, 61, 62. Will Anderson, the same thing too. Will Anderson's probably going to get $25-30 million a year. So
Yeah, he's
they,
gonna make some money.
they're going to make some money. That's why they went out and got Mixon. Now why they got Danielle Hunter. That's why they did all these moves. And then so the Commanders play the Saints this weekend. Jake Hayner's getting the start, but I don't know what to think of the Commanders right now. I think they were that like nice story, but then they started to play some like, real true good teams, like the cream of the crop, and that's where we kind of learned, oh, maybe give them a couple more, give them another year or two of development. Yeah. Like with this game, I just have the Commanders winning. Look, the Saints, they got the fun little win over the Giants last week, but I don't really see much else with that for them,
Yeah,
It's just
let's
like
keep on seeing the Jaden Daniels, hype train build.
bingo. Jags and Jets. Look, I would
Can
love.
we skip that one?
I only
It's
have
like,
one
do
thing
we
to
have to
say.
talk about that?
I only have one thing to say with this game. Mac Jones is undefeated against the New York Jets in his career. Fun little fact.
Unfortunately, he sucks.
Yeah, but
it's hilarious. It's hilarious that they won that game last week, and he threw 2 picks, and they're like both hilariously bad. But you know what? I'm down for any and all Jets losses at this point. It's just hilarious. I want to see how bad it can get.
And the documentary coming out next week just makes those if they were like not if they were 10-3 right now, that weird documentary is like, all right, whatever. Now it's just like, okay, what are you doing? And now,
Speaking of, can we just touch on that real quick? The documentary, and then Aaron Rodgers being like, well, all these ESPN, these former player personalities going on ESPN and talking about stuff. I hate when they do that and make it all about themselves. And I'm just kind of like, holy lack of self-awareness, Batman. And the fact that he said it on the Pat McAfee show that has him on once a week, like, no, he's special. He is special.
say it with me now, double standard.
That doesn't even cover it, honestly. Like he doesn't live on planet Earth. If he actually said that with a straight face and thought that was going to go over all right.
I think he just kind of like either believes himself or he has people around him that like they just tell him what he wants to hear. That's what I think.
I mean, maybe. I feel like I don't even know about that last part, honestly, because I don't know who he even surrounds himself with at this point. He don't got no family, that he talks to. He chases away like every girl he's around, so
Whatever hallucinogenic he's on that day. Giants and Ravens is another one. My only question for you is the number 16. Do the Ravens cover the number?
16? Yep, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, Tommy DeVito's not good. Now we get to the exciting part, Philadelphia versus Pittsburgh, which the fun fact of the day I learned, the last time the Steelers beat the Eagles was 1965.
I did see that earlier. It's going to be really interesting. I feel like I think without George Pickens, I think that's going to be a tough one for Pittsburgh to swing. What I'm going to say, though, is that Russell Wilson has outplayed every expectation I had for him. So I'm not going to count him out at all the way that he's been playing football.
My thing with Russ is simple. It's just if you let Russ be Russ, he's going to play good football. It's when that's why last 2 years in Denver. Well, I don't know what happened in 2022. That was just a weird year. But with 2023 Russ. It was just, hey, him and Peyton couldn't get along. They couldn't get together. My bigger storyline with this game is whatever the hell's going on in the locker room. And then the whole Brandon Graham, like, oh, hey. And they come out and they say, oh, they're good. And then all this other stuff where it's like, and then you have basically the metaphorical mop and bucket have to come up to clean out the mess. You know what? Like, it's like I ask. So basically for the folks out there, before I come on with every guest, I always ask them how they're doing, how they're going. It's like you, hey man, I'm doing good, working, grinding, all this stuff. The fact that you just say good, it just gets misinterpreted towards like, yeah, we're good. It basically makes it look so passive aggressive to where it's like, okay, is there something really else going on here? But with this game though, and also the other thing with this game too, Cam Hayward called it like a high school state championship style of prep for the Steelers in the sense of like, you know what, hey, that's your rival from across the way. Well, my MacBook. Ultimately, they'll call me weird, but I think there's a chance that the Steelers pull one out just because, there's so much off the field stuff going on with the Eagles. And when that stuff happens, we saw it last year. Off the field stuff starts to brew up with the team, and they somehow, a 10-2 team looks like a 2-10 team with dysfunction. So I think there's a way the Steelers pull this one out also because it's the classic, Mike Tomlin in the underdog spot.
And Mike Tomlin's voodoo magic is on par with Kansas City Chiefs. It might not be exactly the same tier, but it's right up there.
The amount of lunatics he's had at wide receiver.
I mean, like he's never had a normal wide receiver. But then again, I mean, what they say is never take a chance on a Pittsburgh wide receiver that they've decided they don't want anymore. Because they know how to pick their talented wide receivers. That is for sure. The other thing is, hey, Russ said this. It's like, I'm like 4-0 in in-state games. So I win them all. So maybe it's not wise to bet against Russ.
Maybe it's not. And the other thing too, the Steelers that I always love, also fun another fact I've learned about them. When do you think the last time they finished in last place in their own division was?
Last place?
Yeah.
1962?
88.
Oh, 88. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just the fact too that it's such a.
Was it pre-steel curtain? No.
No. Although I just still have the take that if Terry Bradshaw had his style of play in today's NFL, he would have been out of the league long before he was a Super Bowl champion. Because if you look at some of his numbers from his first few seasons, they were awful. Like he was not a good quarterback. But you know what? He blossomed into a Hall of Famer, so I can only say so much. Colts and Broncos. This is. I said this the other day. I also apologize to Bo Nix. Garrett Bowles broke my heart today by signing a 4-year extension. But I'm going Broncos just because I can't. I know Anthony Richardson just came off a good game against New England, but like I can't trust Anthony Richardson against the good teams in the NFL.
No, I mean, look, he's gonna give you explosive pass plays on occasion, and then he's going to miss everything, probably more often. So yeah, I think that if you're a betting man, you probably take Denver in this one. And yeah, I clowned Bo Nix a lot in the beginning of the year, and he looks like. He's quickly moved himself up to the top 3 of that rookie quarterback ladder for sure.
Yeah, definitely. If I had to say the top rookie quarterback, well, obviously, look, if there's 2 we can't really say, but all the other 4, there really hasn't been a miss so far when it comes to all these rookie quarterbacks. Obviously, look,
I would agree.
The Michael Penix situation is going to be a fascinating one to see whatever the hell happens.
Honestly, I feel like the Falcons right now, what are they, 6-6?
Yeah.
No.
They're 6-7.
What are they right now? I gotta find out what their record is.
I think it's 6-7 because they lost to Minnesota on Sunday.
Yeah, they're 6-7. I think if the Falcons actually want to make the playoffs, I think it's time for Michael Penix, and that is knowing that it's not gonna be ideal. But I think Kirk's cooked. I'm sorry, I think it's done. And that's why you draft him. People thought they were insane for doing that. But I said at the time, I get it. I think like on paper, it's ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
Right. And the fact that you paid Kirk all that money, but you basically did it to make sure that you got him and to secure that. But if Kirk is not himself anymore, if he can't recover from that injury, you got to have a backup plan. And so
absolutely.
The reality is like look, I think that if you if you said to yourself, like, okay, like, hey, Kirk, we'll ride with you or whatever, but like, if you're hurting, if you need a little bit of recovery, we could shut you down and have the kid play, and then you get the job to start next season, and then if Michael Penix, if you got to play him, then you trade Kirk Cousins because they can't get out of this contract right now. They can't cut Kirk.
No,
So there's that complicating factor.
I think after next year, there's an out. You can quote me on. You can misquote me on that. I don't
Yeah.
know, but I think
So
that
after next year, you can get out. It's 25 million in dead money, but you save 32 million. So, that's even if you did it before June 1st. So if you did like a post June 1st cut in 2026, then the dead money drops off big time. And I mean, look, even technically this year, like this coming year, you still shouldn't do that though, because it's 40 million in dead money and you don't save anything.
You got to get him to wait.
Really, you can't cut Kirk. You just can't do it. But I think they'll probably ride with it for a little bit and see if they can get a little bit more, squeeze as much good play out of him as possible. But this was exactly what I was trying to tell people at the time. Like, oh yeah, he signed a 4-year contract. He's not making it through 4 years.
Oh God,
no, he's not making it to the end of that contract. No way. So this is why you draft Michael Penix, and and this is the thing, right? Like, why are you going to draft him if you're not going to play him right away? I think that what we saw with Drake May, actually, and the questions people had, and now everybody wants to say, well, he would have been this good from the beginning. Would he? I think that as much as Patriots fans and detractors really hated that move to have him sit, even when like we all knew, and look, whatever they were saying, they knew he could play. They just wanted to let him bake a little while longer. And then he came in and everybody's like, oh, how could you put him against the Texans? You got to make a soft landing for him. And they were like, no, we don't. He's the best quarterback on the team and he's good. He gives us the best chance to win this game. Hell no, we're not going to sit up there and let him bake. No, we're going to let him cook. And he sat up there and he cooked and he's been cooking, right? So I think they knew what they had. They didn't jump the gun. No. And that's the thing. The Falcons stashed Penix for insurance in case the Kirk thing didn't work out. And now it looks like freaking genius because you've got a dude that you can evaluate right after that. And they're going to get him on the field sooner rather than later. He's not going to be on no Jordan Love. He's not going to be like, oh, I'm going to start finally in my 4th year. That's not going to happen. But the thing is, he gets to watch and learn from Kirk Cousins.
Yep.
And so that when it's time for him to play, I think there's even a better chance he balls out. Me personally.
Because, look, they've got pieces there. It's just like Atlanta's got to know eventually, like, hey, this isn't going to work. The other option, too, is that you have Kirk waive his no-move clause to, go somewhere where it's like, hey, you can go play, you can go do this. But at the same time, too, eventually, like Atlanta, it was one of those moves where at first you judged it, and it was like, I more or less was just like, I didn't understand it, but then now you put into perspective, it's like, you know what? Hey, what they did was a true insurance policy. And you know what? When it's time to cash that policy, you're going to run right to the bank and cash that check. But with Drake May, I'm going to say it like this. You don't throw a piece of meat on the grill without seasoning it first. You got to let it season, marinate, and then you let it cook. That's what Drake May is. You know it's going to taste good, but you got to give it time.
And that's the thing. Too many of y'all be eating unseasoned ass food. Okay. It's like you're rushing and then you're throwing stuff on there, while the food is cooking. Like, no, you messed up. You got to season it. You got to prepare it properly.
And that's what's happened with this next game. Look, this is probably the game of the weekend, game of the year. It's going to be a great one. I remember when my wife found out this game was like conflicting with the Pats game. She's almost at the verge where she doesn't even want to watch the Patriots. She's just like, I might watch this game instead. And that's Bills and Lions. Call me crazy. I think this is one Buffalo gets. I know Detroit's look good.
That's crazy. I mean, see, this is one of those.
I think Detroit's due for a loss. Detroit's just been
two good teams. Yeah. This is two of the best teams in the NFL. Literally, either one of them can win this game.
My other thing with this game too is just the fact that I think that, and also the over/under for this game is at 54.5. I think both offensive lines are going to, take care of both defensive lines because Detroit's defensive line's banged up. Buffalo's defensive lines, it's good. It's not great. That's why I think their kryptonite could be come playoff time. but I think we're getting a gun show on Sunday afternoon from the Motor City. I looked at this game for ticket prices. It's like $500 to get in the door at Ford Field. But you know what? I think this is the game that the Bills get to where it's like, oh, Buffalo's legit. They brushed off the bad loss. Not even bad, but like bad in the sense of like, just overall like the way they lost to the Rams. Like the blocked punt, not being able to cash in late enough, and the fact that Josh Allen still played out of his mind, MVP caliber, first quarterback in NFL history, 3 rushing, 3 receiving touchdown, 3 throwing touchdowns.
Yeah.
This is one they get. And then, I just think but this, like I said, I have Buffalo winning this game. They're only 2.5 points. And also, like I said, I think Detroit's due for a loss. Losing here would help Detroit more than winning, because I think winning would hurt them, because basically, look, if you run the table and win out, you lose in the playoffs or you get under pressure, you're not going to know how to handle it. That's what my thing with Detroit is.
Here's what I'm going to say, though. I feel
What?
like this team has, having been to the, NFC Championship already, but I feel like they've been in pressure situations, and I feel like what helps them is that they always go aggressive. They never go passive.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, right? You live and die with those. So sometimes they'll miss the 4th down, but they always come back and do it again. If it's 4th and short, oh hell, we're going for it again. We don't care. So
that's why I applauded them for what happened in the NFC Championship game last year.
Yeah,
they didn't go off script. They lived and died by their motto.
Yeah, and so I feel like they're bought in to the point where I don't think the pressure bothers them, and also it's not like they're like they play one way and then get in the playoffs and play another. This is all they know. Yeah. So to me, I think it's just a matter of are they executing? So and to me, I feel like it's going to come down to another one of these, right? One of these controversial ass plays where it's like it's 4th and 2 with like 30 seconds left from like midfield or something like that, and you're going to have an opportunity to like kick the field goal or like do you punt or whatever and risk the Rams or risk the Bills getting the ball back with Josh Allen? They'd be like, we're going for it, baby. What do you think this is?
Having Jared Goff like hand it off, go down on a knee to David Montgomery, and David Montgomery just bull rushes for the first down.
Or it's like Penei Sewell, like that's what they show on the film, right? Is that Penei Sewell like blocked, like he caved somebody in and then went and blocked the backer, and you're just like, well, when your offensive lineman does that, like when your Pro Bowl right tackle just does that, just takes out 2 or 3 people on a given play, and the entire right side of the offensive line is just parting like the Red Sea. I'll go for it every 4th and 2 too. What you think? If you're asking me to if you're asking me to get 2 yards, and I believe my offense can get 2 yards, I'm going to try and get those 2 damn yards every time. This is the thing that gets me, man. Is and you got some really, really smart, really iconic football people crapping on Dan Campbell for doing what he does.
Yeah,
and it's like analytics this, analytics that. Do you want to win?
Yeah.
Do you want to win the game? Because it seems like you're just trying not to lose. And I think you hear this often, right? You hear this especially out of New England a lot. And I think there's 2 sides to it, right? You hear it's like, in order to win, sometimes you first got to learn how to not lose. Once you have gotten past that, though, then it's just time to start winning. So you better believe I'm not just trying to escape the game. I feel like some people are trying to escape the game. They just want to get out of it with as little effort as possible. And Dan Campbell's like, no, I'm here to beat you. I'm here to step on your neck. Fuck you. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. I gotta say, like, that's what he's saying. This is what he's saying.
And the fact too that you see, like, look from what, and this is the other reason too why I'm saying this with Gerard Mayo, where I'm not ready to move off him. And I know because there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, he's coaching for his job, oh, this.
Yeah, no, I know Greg Bedard. I've been out there with him for a while. I'm not buying that at all. He's not coaching for his damn job. You think honestly that Robert Kraft was going to make a decision he made supposedly 5 years ago?
That was a metaphor. That was a figure of speech.
Yeah. But I mean, like, even he knew that he wanted to do this. So he stopped Gerard Mayo from leaving a couple years ago because he had interest to go other places. And Robert Kraft intentionally kept him around gave him a new contract to stick around, wrote it into the contract that he was a successor, and then after 1 year, we're going to ditch it. And again, I've already said this. Gerard Mayo is normal bad for a first-year head coach. The team is bad. He has not done a great job. He talks too much sometimes, sticks his foot in his mouth, whatever. But you don't understand, like some of y'all don't understand what catastrophically bad is, like inoperably bad. They commit too many penalties. You get some, like, some of the position groups have regressed or whatever. This is not catastrophic and dysfunctional. It's just bad. They're just a bad football team. And I know that's crazy for people to think, like, yeah, that's still not acceptable. Yeah, no, it's not acceptable. You want it to get better. But no, you don't. Y'all don't understand. Like, if you're really calling for Gerard Mayo to understand, you don't know what catastrophically bad coaching looks like. Like, this is untenable. The players are checked out. They want nothing to do with this. They still play for this man. We're not here. Sorry. I had to rant. I had to do it because it's one of the most irritating things that I've seen. I'm not defending Gerard Mayo and saying he's been a great coach. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is, let's see what he looks like when the roster doesn't suck. And same thing with Elliott Wolf. Yeah, like his, first couple of, his first draft wasn't great. But you know what they did? They hit on the quarterback. And they developed him the right way.
People aren't going to care about, oh, hey, is Jalen Polk an all-pro? No, they're going to care about the fact that you've got a franchise quarterback. The point I was trying to make was, too, like you were saying, Dan Campbell in his first year in Detroit, that team did not win their first game until December.
They were 0-13 to start. And Bill Belichick went 6-10 his first year, 5-11 his first year with the Patriots. Andy Reid went 5-11 his first year. Like a bunch of these
Gannon
coaches
in Arizona too right now.
And again, I'm not going to sit up here and say like, oh, well, that means Gerard Mayo is destined to be great. No, but we can't
give it time.
We can't just look at the results without looking at the context and just assume that we know how it's all going to turn out. Yeah, the odds are against Gerard Mayo being a great coach. It's true. It's true. But again, they have an understanding. I can tell you this. They knew what this was. Okay. They didn't spend all that money. Everybody's screaming about all the money they didn't spend. You know why they didn't spend that money?
Because there's no one available and no one wanted to come here.
This next year. Yeah. Why are you going to spend all this money on free agents to get you to 6 wins? Who cares? I thought y'all wanted to win championships.
Here's the other thing. Here's the other thing too. So, quick question for you. Have you ever had a situation with your daughter where she's like, I want to try this. And you're like, I don't know if you're going to like it. And then she still tries it anyway. She's like, I don't like it. I like with like food or any, like a food
this
or drink.
This is literally every day.
Because that's literally what Patriot fans are. Basically, you told them this year, hey, your team is going to be bad. Oh, I don't like this. Why are we bad? Why do we suck? Why is everything this? Fire this person. Fire this person. Robert Kraft's a bad owner. Yada, yada, yada. He's more worried about getting into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which is another topic for another day. Basically, though, the ones who have bought into the idea that, look, this team is going to suck, which we know. But guess what? The future's bright. You see the light at the end of the tunnel because there's a huge difference between being bad on accident like they were in 2023 and being bad on purpose like what they are now. We knew going into the year, this year was not going to be fun. You compared it, I remember, months ago to the 2022 Chicago Bears, which it's looking like that right now. They're at 3 wins right now. If they can get to 4 or even 5, I'd be happy. But you know what? This year, you go out because now, hey, that free agent wide receiver or that trade target wide receiver, you can say this, hey, you want to come play with Drake May? Hey, you know what? Alex Van, that's the only thing. I think the coordinators potentially are, but I say this right now, you got to give Alex Van Pelt another year. You can't have Drake May going into his second year with a new offensive coordinator. Defensive coordinator, that's a little bit of a different story. We'll see what they do with Covington, especially if there is a big name out there that, you know what, hey, they could flirt with, but for the most part, no. It's irritatingly bad, and it just goes back to the point with the Detroit Lions where it's, look, their first year wasn't perfect health. Their second year wasn't even perfect until the end, where everyone then was saying for 2023, hey, look at Detroit. So now with New England, if it's look at towards the end of next season, it can be, you know what, hey, 2026, maybe this is the year they take the leap because we don't know what Miami's going to be. We certainly don't know what the Jets are going to be. And by then, Josh Allen's just going to be older. I'm not saying the Bills are going to go anywhere. I'm just saying these are things you have to prepare for. Look at the AFC West right now. You have a Charger team who's playing very good. You have a Denver team being very well. And then you have the Raiders who are just terrible, which takes us to our next game, which is the Bucks playing the Chargers, which this is a low-key very good matchup sprinkled in a window of fantastic football. But I like even though I like what the Bucks are selling, I got to go Chargers here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Justin Herbert is just playing such good football. As long as his receivers are catching the throws that he's putting up there.
He's one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the league, so in my opinion, just for overall recognition, because like it's always like the big guys. I feel like his name's always that one that gets tossed aside sometimes.
Yeah, and thank you, Jim Harbaugh, for helping, make that team good enough for him to get noticed for what he does.
Exactly. And then Arizona, New England. Look, I think the Cardinals are a team I've always been a quasi fan of, but look,
yeah, go ahead.
I just think that they're a team that they're not ready to compete yet. I've liked what they've done this year. Drew Pensing is I say this right now, he is a name to watch for in this coaching cycle coming up. What he's done with that offense, I think I don't know if he'll get jobs, but he'll definitely get interviews.
Yeah.
But overall with this game, I can see a world where New England squeaks one out, but I can also see a world where, look, Arizona's just the better team and Kyler Murray turns into Mighty Mouse against that defense.
I think it's going to be...
And I say that respectfully.
I think it's going to be Drake May doing his thing and the Patriots winning this game. And I think that's probably the last win they get this year, but I think the Patriots are going to find a way to win this game. Somehow.
I think they split with Buffalo.
Think so? I mean, wouldn't that be something? Oh my God. Well, especially if it's the last game of the year and Buffalo, gets like a first round bye or something, or they're like playing for the, get the number 1 seed or what have you. If that happens, right?
My single mind is that we cost them the bye.
So I think, depending on what Buffalo's playing for in that last week, obviously it's a divisional matchup, but oh my God, if New England squeaked out 5 wins and beat Buffalo for one of those, shoot, you're not going to be able to shut me up.
That's the thing. We can go, because think about it. They go into the playoffs being like, with all this pressure, we can go in saying, hey, you got to play an extra game because of us. Ha ha ha. It's like, I you remember the Simpsons movie, but when Homer's going down the quicksand, he's just flipping everyone off. It's just like, that's how we just go like, la, da, 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 like, hey, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. That's how the Patriots go into the offseason. And then, but you know what? There's 2 matchups in this game I'm looking forward to. That is Christian Gonzalez against Marvin Harrison Jr. I've been looking forward to that since the 2 of them got drafted. But Trey McBride against Kyle Duggar. Because Kyle Duggar, look, the ankle hasn't been there. But I think this might be a game where he gets his swagger back.
I hope so, man, because right now that contract looking rough.
There's a lot of contracts looking rough with them. But the fact, too, I don't want to criticize Elliott Wolf for this because of all the extensions he's done this past offseason, a lot of them have trapdoor escape clauses that you can get out of.
They do.
And for a lot of the free agency signings, one I've really liked has been Antonio Gibson, to be honest with you.
Oh, he's been nice. He's been real nice.
But there is a running back in college that I would like to see in New England, even though I don't know he would get there, and that's Cam Scatterbo from Arizona State.
Yeah, I think there are a number of. I mean, I'm personally of the idea that you should draft a running back pretty much every year, especially just knowing how difficult that position is on the body, especially for this team. Yeah, you should draft a running back.
Also considering Kevin Harris has not worked out at all for them. And I say that too, just because I'll say this with the running backs.
And again, 6th round pick. So it's like, that's fine.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's a 6th round pick. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's like if Javon Baker doesn't end up working out. He was a 6th round pick as well. But like, what was I going to say too? Like an Ashton Genty, for example, I think he's going to go too high and everyone's going to think, hey, you do what you did at Boise State, do now. But then it's like, hey, this isn't the Mountain West anymore, kid. I'm not trying to,
honestly, as far as Ashton Genty goes, don't think it matters. I think he's that nice. But I think that with him, yeah, you're not spending a 1st round pick on Ashton Genty. It's just not happening.
No,
I would be staggered given all the things that you need. But no, I think
there's been stupider things to happen with GMs on draft night, just saying.
Yeah, but I think Ashton Genty does everything pretty well. Catches the ball, he blocks well, and he's got home run speed. He can run away from you. Like I think that's the thing, right? Like you could talk about some of the competition, but I mean D1, like yeah, these guys are running 4.4s. You know, they're
Yeah.
all running, they're moving. I feel like if Genty goes to the combine, I'll be curious if he
Or if he plays
participates
well in the
slash how
Fiesta
much
Bowl.
and what he does. But I mean, that dude's he's a little brick house.
Or if he plays well, even if they lose their matchup in the quarterfinals, I'm brain farting on who they're playing right now, but I know they play. I think it's in the Fiesta Bowl. Even if they lose in the Fiesta Bowl, but he still goes off, that's going to raise his draft stock. He goes to the combine and runs a solid 4.4, 4.5. He's good.
Yeah. I mean, I would be curious to see if he does run at the combine. A lot of these top
Yes.
prospects aren't really doing that anymore. But if he does it at his pro day, because hey, pro days are always gonna make it look a little bit better. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like if you could tell me Ashton Genty was gonna run in the you know high 4.4s or like low 4.5s, I'm like, good enough for me.
That's exactly it. It depends because, like, look, the pro days are meant just to inflate your numbers, make you look good. Hell, that's the reason why Zach Wilson went number 2 in my opinion because he threw that one long bomb and everyone and the Jets for some reason were like
Exactly.
sold. Um, Seahawks and Packers, and which is a very compelling Sunday night football game. And I'm going to say this right now. I still believe in Geno Smith for this team for next year because this is a team that can draft a project quarterback and have him sit behind Geno and wait, similar to what Michael Penix is doing right now in Atlanta. And also, I'll say this too: Mike McDonald's done a very good job with that team. And also, here's the other thing too: they have a good two-headed monster at running back with Charbonnet and Walker.
Yeah, I'm gonna go here with. I think I'm gonna go with the pack.
Oh, I'm just
Um,
saying I like Seattle. I'm not saying I like Seattle for the game. I'm just saying I like what they've been doing this year.
yeah, no, I think so, and I think Gino has continually proven that he's better than everybody thought that he was going to be when he got written off. You
Yeah,
know, I think he's a little chaotic, but he's a good NFL quarterback. He's a solidly good quarterback.
yeah.
Um, and I think though that I think Jordan Love, now that he's gotten healthy, he looks like a guy that you pay. And then you've got Josh Jacobs, who is one of the best running back in the league, been going
Jaden
off.
Reed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I think Green Bay gets this game back because look, Seattle's because here's the thing too with right now, like even though this I saw it because if you guys saw me earlier go like raise my eyebrows really high, it's because there were 11 punts in that first half in that football game and they scored 6 combined points. Um, but Seattle right now is chasing the Seattle and the Rams are going to win the division more than likely. But Green Bay needs this just to keep afloat with everyone else in their division, which includes the Monday night game, which includes your time to speak out because look, it has been far from perfect in Bears country this year. I don't know what went wrong. I don't know what happened. But call me absolutely crazy. I think this is where the bleeding stops for Chicago. It's a 7-point spread. Minnesota classic letdown spot. I think this is one the Bears get, especially on the prime stage too. You can
I
disagree with me. This
Well,
just
I think
screams
it's
trap
it's
game for the Vikings.
interesting because last year, they won on Monday Night Football despite a raggedy ass game from the
Was it like
offensive
12 to
side.
10 or something like that? It was like really low scoring too.
Yeah, it was like 10. It was like, it was like 12-10 or something like that.
I'm gonna
And
look it
it's
up.
like, Justin Fields, like he fumbled twice, but then he like hit, a big throw down the field to lead a game-winning drive. And it was like, oh snap, look at that. He can do that. But I think divisional games, you always kind of got to throw things out to an extent. I just feel like the Bears are in a bit of a chaotic spot right now where they're trying to figure stuff out with um, Thomas Brown, uh, being the interim head coach and calling the game from the sideline instead of calling it in the booth. I don't know. I think that it's a bit of a mess right now for them.
Yeah, I don't know what to think with what has happened there. It's just interesting too because look, I I always had them as like an 8-9 win team and like flirting with the playoffs. I didn't have whatever the hell happened this year was. My big thing with them is just Look, the play of Cole Kmet's been a little bit of a disappointment this year.
Yeah, they basically just don't use this guy.
Yeah, and they paid him handsomely too. DJ Moore's the other one where it's like, what's going on there? They just gave him a very nice contract extension as well. The defense has held up its own to an extent, but I don't know if what happened this year helps or hurts them just because now there's not going to be crazy expectations going into next year. Like I heard some people saying, best case scenario, Super Bowl. And I'm like, okay, pump the brakes. We do this every year with one team and it usually backfires. Kind of like what happened to the Houston Texans this year. Everyone was like, yo, you know what? No one's scared of Houston anymore. Well, Houston's kind of settled off. I just looked it up too. It was 12-10, 4 Cairo Santos field goals, including a 1 with 10 seconds left to win the game. The Bears had a Greg Joseph field goal and a TJ Hawkinson touchdown. But look, this is a game, like I said, Bears have to get one eventually, and this seems like the one to get. Either this or, call me crazy, but them making Jared Goff's day in the elements bad in Chicago because for some reason Jared Goff and Soldier Field just do not go well together.
I think that they've probably gotten past it decently enough with the Jared Goff versus the Bears, or at least for this version of the Bears. But especially now that Matt Eberflus isn't there to do whatever witchcraft he did to make Jared Goff play bad.
Yeah. And then look, Monday night's a doubleheader, but this is the only game I can watch because Falcons and Raiders, I look at that and I'm like, why is that a Monday night football game?
Hey, maybe this is when we get Michael Penix. Who knows?
Maybe. I do think the Falcons take this just because I've said this from the jump, but the Antonio Pierce hiring in Vegas has always reminded me of what Freddie Kitchens was with Cleveland 5 years ago, where I'm like, it should have never been done. It was I think they kind of just like, they were comfortable with him, but also I think there's more smoke to the fire of Max Crosby saying, hey, you don't hire this guy, I'm going to want to trade. I think that was probably a big factor in it as well. I'm not trying to diss Max. I'm just trying to say I think that's something that's a little bit more believable than not.
Yeah. I think just because I have to pick someone, I'll pick the Falcons.
It's literally two bad teams, and because honestly, your game, the Bears and Vikings has more intriguing storylines. It's what's Minnesota going to look like? How do the Bears respond after what happened in San Francisco? Because look, I think that game was just you got San Francisco on a pissed off day, kind of like New England did a few months ago, where San Francisco that had the recipes for a get right game for them, and right now they are doing everything to not get right. But anyway, you know what, Kyrie? It was a blast as always, my man. You know what? You didn't have one. I've been sipping on let's right in camera, my Good Monsters IPA tonight from a brewery here in southern Ontario. But it's been great to do this. We'll have to do this again, chop it up again in the off season. Guys, we've had two great, good Lord, that was almost an interception. But we've had two great episodes this week. Kyrie Thompson, I'm Griff. Guys, check out all his work. He does great work. NBC Boston, boston.com. You know where to find me. Have a good night. Enjoy the NFL Week 15. We'll catch you guys next time.